Hey, welcome once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Well, around the NHL, we're going to bring it to you, starting, Matt, with last week's, or I guess this week's, 3 stars of the NHL.
All right. So the third star of the week, Mr. Connor McDavid. What a week did he have? Like that game against Arizona, like those 2 goals, that one where he just flew down the ice and just sniped it at full speed, just crazy. But he's the third star of the week. In 4 games, he had 3 goals, 9 points, including that overtime winner. He's now up to 105 points in 68 games. He's on an 8-game multi-point streak and a 12-game point streak right now. The guy's if it wasn't
Carrying the Oilers on his back, trying to get that last playoff spot.
Oh, it's just him and Draisaitl right now have just been unbelievable for them this year. The second star of the week, a big surprise here from the Chicago Blackhawks, Brendan Perlini. He had 5 goals and 7 points in 3 games, including his first career hat trick. What a week that he had. He was sort of like that forgotten guy in the Dylan Strome, Nick Schmaltz trade, but he's up to 13 goals, 20 points in 58 games this year. But hopefully he can continue that hot streak. He had that nice goal against Carey Price there on the weekend as well.
And he may be the fastest skater in the NHL.
If you just have that McDavid goal against Arizona on repeat, it's
watch Perlini though. Perlini, I think he's the fastest skater in the NHL. He really stands out. If only he had he's kind of like Mason Raymond. If only he had the hands to go with it.
And the first star of the week from the New York Islanders, Thomas Greiss. He went 3-1, a 1.25 goals against average, a 9.59 save percentage, and 1 shutout. He's up to 22, 12, and 2 on the season with a 2.21 goals against average, a 9.28 save percentage, and 5 shutouts on the season, with him and Leonard continuing that dominance in net this year.
So the Islanders needed to fix their defense and their goaltending.
Yeah.
They didn't really make a whole lot of changes, although they did bring in Leonard. Greiss and Leonard continue to play absolutely unbelievable. You think the coach has anything to do with their defense being better?
Oh, yeah, because I saw Pierre LeBrun, he just had like a thing where he actually talked with Trotz or whatever, and it's just
amazing, right? Like you bring in Trotz, and all of a sudden your defense and your goaltenders look like they're brick walls.
Mm-hmm. And that's like the biggest thing. It's just getting buy-in from your guys to buy into blocking shots, getting in the right shooting lanes and stuff. And it does help when you got the Stanley Cup winning coach walking into your dressing room right at the start.
Guys will buy in right away.
But it's just
great for the 3 stars there. I know we have lots of other stuff to cover, so why don't you jump into all the different milestones that players hit this week?
Okay, yeah. So there'll be a lot of numbers being thrown out here, but feel free to jump in if anything stands out to you as I go through them. Just for point milestones, we had Jordan Staal. He got his 500th career point off of a beauty backhand spinorama goal against Buffalo. Patrice Bergeron got his 800th career point in a game against Columbus, where Conor McGregor was the big star there before puck drop, and then he had Marchand getting the game-winning goal in overtime and doing the McGregor strut, which was, as much as I hate Marchand, that was pretty fun to see. And then we have Philippe Forsberg got his 300th career point, and Ryan Johansson his 400th career point in Nashville. Jonathan Huberdeau has set a new career franchise record for the Florida Panthers for most assists in a season. He's at 55 right now, passing Viktor Kozlov, who set the record at 53 assists in 1999-2000 season. And Barkov's actually have 53 assists too, so they'll have 2 guys setting new franchise records there.
They're both overtaking the giant 6'6" Viktor Kozlov. A lot of people forgot about him because that's just Kozlov, of course, the better of the 2 Kozlovs at the time. But Viktor Kozlov was unbelievable until he started running into all of his injuries.
Mm-hmm. And then going to Buffalo now, Rasmus Dahlin is now at 38 points this season, which is now tied with Bobby Orr for most points by a defenseman in NHL history before they've turned 19 years old. Phil Housley has the record with 57 points, and that's his head coach as well. So pretty cool there. And then we go to Toronto, where Morgan Rielly got his 20th goal of the season. He's only the third Leaf in franchise history to reach that mark, with Ian Turnbull and Al
Iafrate, the wild one.
Iafrate as the only other two Leafs to reach that mark. A guy closing in on NHL history here is Nikita Kucherov, who is at 82 assists this season. He's only 5 assists back of Jaromir Jagr, of tying him for most assists by a winger in NHL history with 87. And then we had Corey Crawford. He tied a Chicago Blackhawks record for most saves in a shutout, making 48 saves against his hometown team that he grew up loving, making 48 saves, tying Dave Dryden's mark for most saves. And he set that all the way back in 1969 against a game against the Philadelphia Flyers. We have Alexander Ovechkin, who's now 2 goals away from 50 goals on the season. He tied Phil Esposito for 5th most career power play points in NHL history with his 246th of his career. He's only 28 goals back now of Dave Anderchuk for tying him for most power play goals next season in NHL history. We had the Habs. They honored Carey Price for most wins in the Habs franchise history with his 315th. A cool little stat from the Calgary Flames. Matthew Tkachuk became the youngest Flame in franchise history to record 5 points in a game, where he got that against the New York Rangers. That will be the guy that Canuck fans will always regret that we didn't draft Olli Juolevi, as he's over a point a game this season.
Fun being a Canucks fan.
Yeah, and then we go to the Dallas Stars, where Ben Bishop set a franchise record for the longest shutout streak in franchise history at 230 minutes and 53 seconds. And that is actually still ongoing, as he actually left the game with a lower body injury, and he's still out in his day-to-day. But he passed Ed Belfour for the longest shutout streak, which was set all the way back in November of 2000. And then we go back to Tampa Bay, where Steven Stamkos scored his 383rd career goal, tying Vinny Lecavalier for most goals in franchise history. And then we go to the Canucks here, where Elias Pettersson tied Pavel Bure and Ivan Holinka for most points by a Canuck rookie, picking up his 60th point of the season, setting up Mr. Tim Schaller, who got his first 2 goals of the season for the Canucks this year. And then heading away from the NHL, as we look forward to this year's draft, we had Jack Hughes set the USA Hockey National Development Program record for most points. He got his 190th career point there in just 96 games, passing Clayton Keller for most points in U.S. National Development history. And also in that same game, Cole Caulfield scored 6 goals in that game, as he's up to 105 goals in his career with the U.S. National Development Program, passing Phil Kessel for most goals there. So there's crazy numbers. And then I forget if we brought this up on Wednesday, but the other guy that will be the second overall pick, Capo Kakko, he passed Alexander Barkov for most goals by an under 18 in Finnish league history with his 22nd goal of the season. Just a local thing here. Bowen Byram for the Vancouver Giants. He finished his season with 26 goals and 71 points in 67 games. 6 of his goals were overtime winners, which is the most in WHL history. And his 26 goals were the 8th most of all time by an under 18 D-man. And the most since 2001 and 02. He will be a first-round pick in this year's draft. So depending on where the Canucks pick in the top 10 this year, that could be a guy that I would circle in.
I've seen him as high as number 5 this year. So, if you were a general manager that won the draft lottery, who are you taking, Capo or Hughes?
I'm taking Jack Hughes. It's when it comes to a center or a winger, they're both going to be amazing players. Like if you get the first or second overall pick, heck, it could be an outside chance that the Colorado Avalanche get the first 2 picks with the way the draft lottery is. With
They might get both if they get lucky.
Yeah. If that happened, I'm just like, everybody's just gonna be walking out the door because that would be a complete joke. But
if you
yeah.
haven't tried the draft simulator yet, try it, because every few times it's like they both come up and you're like, oh, come on, right? Like,
Well, as long as the Edmonton Oilers do not get a top 3 pick, I will be all right. Just because that's because I think that's something that came up. Is just like, should the NHL change something that if you get like the first overall pick or a top 3 pick, you have to wait like a certain amount of years to get back into the top 3 or something like that? Because we had the Oilers, they had like 3 straight years getting the first overall pick, and like I know, and
4 or 5,
and then 4 or 5.
Paul, McDavid, right? Nugent Hopkins.
Yeah, and Yakupov. It's just like I know not all those guys were like elite like first overall picks, but when you get like 3 straight in a row and then you get the 4th one as well, it's just like you got to do something, because like I know they changed how they weighted the draft lottery to where it is now, but if you do get the same team bombing out over and over again and they keep not being able to turn their franchises around after a certain amount of years, there has to be a little bit more fairness to the other teams. But that's just also coming from a Canucks fan, where we've never had the first overall pick, and we've just been trying to get a top 3 pick just to help speed up the rebuild.
So draft lottery, Canucks have never they've never won it. They've never had a chance to, especially lately. They're picking basically in 5th or lower. Even though they've had a couple of really crappy seasons. Conspiracy theorists out there have the draft, and the NHL draft is in Vancouver this summer. Seattle's coming into the league, and conspiracy theorists are saying the NHL is going to rig the lottery for the Canucks to win it so that they and Seattle can have a massive rivalry. And what are your thoughts on that? I would love it, because Jack Hughes then becomes a Canuck.
Yeah.
And we all of a sudden have a new set of brothers on the Canucks.
Well, anything that would bring us the first overall pick, I'll take it. Because if we want to go to NHL controversy here, in last night's Canucks game, where we had the NHL completely forgetting their rule book and trying to cover their butts after the game with their explanation. If you missed it,
definitely threw a stick from the replays I've seen.
Yeah, so if you missed it, Elias Pettersson got a penalty shot. When he came down, Anton Khudobin threw his stick at him, and it should have been called an automatic goal. And when you have 4 refs staring at the only thing that you have to be looking at, and you got the guys in Toronto, not like everybody just missed it or whatever, but this was the NHL's complete thing on what they explained on what happened and why they still ruled it no goal. It was on ice officials felt this was a hockey play, and that Khudobin was attempting a normal poke check and lost control of his stick. For hockey ops to have overruled that, they would have had to determine conclusively that Khudobin did not lose control and fully intended to throw his stick. They could not. And then the Rangers play was different and was more clear, which that play was Georgiev in a shootout where Alexander Ovechkin had deked him out, and then Georgiev threw his stick and poked the puck away from Ovechkin, but they reviewed that in the shootout and called it a goal. But then you go to the NHL rule book, and this is 25.4 on infractions during the course of a penalty shot. It clearly states a goal will be awarded when a goalkeeper attempts to stop a penalty shot by throwing his stick or any other object at the player taking the shot, or by dislodging the goal, either deliberately or accidentally. And that's the big thing here, is that it doesn't matter if Khudobin meant to or not. Like, if I'm going down on a penalty shot, I mean to score. Like, I want to put the puck in the net. It's just like, I don't score. It's just like they're not going to give me a goal. So it should have been rule of goal, and their whole explanation was like they were just trying to cover their butts. But and that's huge for like teams trying to make the playoffs. Like I know the Canucks aren't going to make.
There's a lot of playoff implications from
Yeah.
that phone call yesterday.
Yeah. Because if you're Minnesota, who's just trying to get in there, and you got Arizona right there, you're trying to catch Dallas. And if they called that goal, that would have made it 3-0 for the Canucks, and it would have been a crazy way for Pettersson to set the Canuck rookie record for most points in a season. But it's just stuff like that where it's just like we got like all like those offside calls where like we're trying to zero in by like millimeters at some times where they're trying to zero in on that, and then they can't even get something so obvious and stuff like that. It's very frustrating.
You have updates on some of the injured players or players coming back from around the NHL.
Yeah, so there isn't a whole lot here right now, but the couple things we got with the Canucks, we had Chris Tanev. He came back and he blocked a shot off his ankle, and he's now done for the year, which to nobody that's to nobody's surprise. Good news in Boston though, David Pastrnak was.
His name, by the way, is Chris Sallow.
Oh man, it's like I don't even think Sammy Sallow was this bad. I think it was like his injuries were just like the flukiest. Like it's like I still like
Sallow had the worst luck I've ever seen in my life, including getting bit by a poisonous snake in Sweden, where Sweden does not have poisonous snakes.
I know, it's just nuts. And then I forget he had like that floor hockey injury as well. I forget which one that was, but it was It's just some of the most mind-boggling injuries you can ever have. And then the couple other ones. Yevgeny Malkin is week to week with an upper body injury in a game against St. Louis. He took a cross check from Robert Bertuzzo. He did leave, but he did come back and finish the game. But he was not in the lineup yesterday against Philadelphia, so that's a huge loss for Pittsburgh there if he's out on the longer term. Ben Bishop, as I mentioned earlier, he's day-to-day with a lower body injury, as it just seems like every year where like he puts up good stats, but he's always dealing with like those groin injuries and stuff like that. And then the last one, of course, David Pastrnak. He practiced on the line with Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand today. He's not expected to be back, I think, tomorrow, but it's sometime this week they're hoping to get him back. And if as Boston wasn't good enough right now, they'll be getting another big, huge superstar back in the lineup.
Getting geared up for their playoff rivalry match with the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course. So final word before we wrap up today's show.
All right, so only 4 games on today's schedule. I'll have all the top highlights, including all of the Canuck game highlights as they play in Chicago today. The same lineup for the Canucks as yesterday, except Thatcher Demko will get the start in net. We will be back on Wednesday for our NHL midweek roundup. Excellent.
Remember to like and share us on Facebook or on YouTube. And, of course, on YouTube, we have our show. On Facebook, we have the show and a lot of highlights from around the league that you can watch and share. We thank you so much for joining us. And remember to comment below about your favorite team. Interact with us. I know a lot of you are sharing our highlights and stuff from around the NHL, and we thank you for that. Continue to spread the word about us. And, as always, we'll see you guys later on this week. I'm Aaron. He's Matt. Have a great week, everyone.